Welcome back. Welcome back. It is one of those days when you look outside. Moderation has da 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 da. Close that. Thank you very much. Welcome to the chat. Hello. Welcome back. There we go. So outside, out there, it's blowing sideways. It's slideways. It's blowing sideways, and that's what you end up doing. Yeah, it was a lovely day yesterday, and it's supposed to be a lovely day on Friday. And today it's having a sulk. I looked at my car, or at least I looked at this shape that looks kind of like it could be my car. And later on, I'll go out and tap on it and see if it's true. So, you know, there are things going on around us every day, and they are causing the utmost damned astonishment. And I see a lot of people blinking. I see a lot of people doing this kind of thing because their brains are more frantically going, what, reset, what, and there's a kind of a jolty quality to the way people are talking to each other. And you know, it really struck me that it was a good time for us to talk about perspective. And I did cover the topic a little bit. I was on Facebook for, I don't know, 10 minutes, whatever, just giving kind of a teaser. And but what I want to talk about here is different, and it's a little deeper, and you know, equally silly in so many ways. And we resist doing things until we absolutely have to, a lot of the time. And the reason, and I, you know, guilty, the reason we do that is because we assume it's going to be a lot of work. If we don't do this new thing, there's no extra work. Now, however, if we do the new thing and we get smarter and we have better tools and it saves us time, well, then it's not more work in the end, is it? It's not more work. It's an improvement. It's a learning process. It's the leaping curve, right? It took us a little time to get to something odd happening there. I'm just going to click that. Ah, there we go. Okay, click and go away though. See, click, go away. Don't just say, thanks for clicking. When we take on things, we say to ourselves, well, it should be an improvement. It may be slow going at the beginning, but I'll speed up faster. For instance, I'm not going to sound very old. Oh well. When I learned to type, I learned to type on a typewriter, and it was a manual typewriter. It wasn't plugged into anything. So how fast you went was how fast you went. How fast you overcame the resistance of the keys that really didn't want to be depressed and resisted the fact that you were depressing them. And then they came along with computers or computerized typewriters plugged in, you know, so and keys and no resistance, woohoo! And so immediately you could type faster. Could you be more accurate? No, those aren't necessarily connected. You could. Well, good morning, Tony. How are you? You, when you went from a manual typewriter to an electric typewriter, you had two things happen. You had the potential for greater output. Immediately, you had the potential. What it required, though, was practice, so that you didn't just have the potential for more errors, for people to say, what language is this in? You have to get good at it. You have to go through that learning process, the leaping curve, as Seth Godin calls it, which I love. So our perspective on life in the world, you know, after the electric and then the electronic and then the something or other typewriter, suddenly computers, suddenly keyboards, suddenly, oh my gosh. You know, there are computers you can talk to, and they just take down the words. I had one of those talk to it programs that I used to dictate a bunch of stuff for a screenplay I was writing. The thing is, a lot of it was set in foreign countries, where the names of places were, you know, ridiculous. And the program would just helpfully, hopefully, instead of saying Uzbekistan, instead of that appearing on the screen, it would say Hungary or Baltimore. And you think, I don't even know how, never mind. Highlight, fix. So the perspective that we have, this is new, it's going to be better. No, this is new, and we now have an opportunity to change who we are and become a better version of ourselves. Even if the thing at the end isn't as magical as we thought, we learn something. And when we learn something, we are taller and thinner and have fluffier hair. So a couple of the things that happened that made me smile. One was that picture, and I talked about it on Facebook. The picture of Christine McGlade and I at the Fame book launch in front of the locker doors. And Jim Clark had brought the barrel as one of the things. He surprised me with it. He said, "Look what I brought." And I said, "Oh my God." So hide it so Christine doesn't see it until there's a great moment for it. And when he brought it out, she said, "Oh my God," because there was an episode, and I don't remember when, and I don't remember what the theme was, but somebody will, where Christine had to wear a barrel. And so they had this, not a real barrel, but it looked like one. And it had straps. And so she came on wearing it. It was something, whether it was cost cutting, so there were no costumes, or I don't know, or she ruined her stuff in the wash. Forget the theme. Anyway, it's the barrel. Christine is standing there. And so we're both standing there. And in the picture, we're both standing there looking at it. And I said to her, "Do you miss those days?" She said, "Well, I miss some of them." Yeah, like not that one, not this one here, but of course I miss some of them. And then we were talking about her chapter in the Fame book. And one of the great stories that she tells, and by the way, if you're really curious about Fame, it's available on Amazon. It's called Fame, the Collector's Edition, and it's written by Abby Hager. She said, "I didn't actually go to the audition with the intention of getting the job. I thought it was kind of lame, but my girlfriend was really keen, so I decided to go to support her. But I'm sitting there watching all these kids doing their kind of moment. They're awkward in front of the camera. Hi, my name is Bob," and that thing. And she said, "It took me like 3 people. And I'm saying to myself, well, I'm better than that. I could hello circles around these people. I could host this show. If this is all they want, I can host this show. You know what? I'm going to audition." And so at one point she had the opportunity, and Roger had a moment, and she said, "Can I try?" And he said, What? Oh, yes, sure, yes, of course. Just give somebody your name, and yes, by all means, just come over and stand there and read the thing." And she did. And she was brilliant at it. She was the most natural, spontaneous, no kvetching, no anxiety, no second guessing. She was just all over it. She was walking here like she'd invented walking. And everybody, the producer especially, said, and that was it. And that was it. She was perfect. Now, how she had felt before, while she was just, kind of going there for a girlfriend, she thought it was really lame, and she was really rather be doing whatever else it was they were supposed to be doing. From that little moment, through the curiosity, through the recognition factor that what was on offer was clearly substandard, and what she knew she could do without even trying. This all happened like with no conscious thought. She didn't say, "You know how I feel about this now?" No. She just all of a sudden thought, and got up and said, "Can I do it next?" Because she hadn't come with an expectation. She'd come thinking she would just be hanging around, standing on one leg while her girlfriend embarrassed herself and, or maybe got the job, who knew? And then all of a sudden she realized that it was something that she was kind of curious about, kind of intrigued by. And then she did it. And they all said, come here. And she thought, well, that was easy. And they pay money? Cool. Where do I sign? So that was the very beginning. And her perspective changed in a vast way very quickly, in a matter of hours. So then you fast forward through the series and how it rocketed to popularity thanks to, the syndication deal that Nickelodeon signed with us, and the thousands, hundreds of thousands of people that she met, and the hundreds of thousands of expectations people had of her, and the boundaries people crossed, either knowingly or not knowingly, and the limitations imposed on her natural freedom, and the relentlessness of go to rehearse, no free weekends stuff. Those all became overlaid on her perspective. And there was a time, briefly, in the middle, toward the end, where she had lost her joy of it because she was not seeing really anything of her own growth. She was just seeing the constantness of it. And it clearly was not for her greener grass on the other side. It was something she had to mow every day. And it didn't fill her with anything but, what time is it? And that was a shame. And we had a lot of conversations about that. She was saying, I could go get a job over there. And I would say, yes, hon, but they pay $5 an hour. And she'd say, $5 an hour? What is that? Reality. You know how much this pays? And she said, yeah, I do. And I said, and you get to travel. Yeah. So, and you get perks and you get clothes and you get, yeah, okay. So she stayed, but she didn't have the perspective that I'm talking about. That is so interesting. When she left the show for the same reason that all the kids eventually left the show, and that was they became too old to play the kind of kid who was watching the show. The show was targeting kids who were between the ages of 10 and 14, the tween years. And all of a sudden, when Kevin Kubichesti came back from one summer break, and he was taller than me, and we had to shoot all his scenes sitting down, we all knew this was his last season. It was devastating. For some of the kids, they were horrified and terrified. They didn't want to go. They didn't want to leave. But who they were and who they reflected, who they represented, wasn't working anymore. It happened to Lisa. It happened to Alistair. Happened to Adam. Happened to Doug. It happened to every single one of the kids. Eventually, they looked and were and sounded and behaved too mature. They weren't seeing the world, hearing the world, feeling the world from a teenager's point of view. They had moved on. They had gone a little further through that leaping curve. They discovered more things about themselves and the world. And they couldn't find their way back to where they had been. Why? Because we hadn't coached them to be actors who became someone else. We coached them to be themselves, to own who they are, to own their space, no matter what. We coached them to be the constant in an ever-changing world. And that made the show great. For the kids who were looking to transition or to look to stay, it put barriers in their way that no one saw coming. So there's always going to be a positive and there's going to be a negative. Here's the thing about their perspective. When I interviewed them for the Fame book, they could now see everything. They could see who they were at the beginning. They could remember it. They could remember their moments of highs and lows and crazy things that went wrong and went right through the show. They could remember leaving. And now here they were in their new life today. So we had those conversations about all those steps in their growing process, in their journey through fame, through You Can't Do That on Television. We talked about who they were at every stage. So, and it was eye-opening. It was game-changing for all of us, because after they would say a certain thing, or I would ask a question and they would think about it and answer it, there would be these moments on the conversation where they'd be going, huh, yeah, I never, yeah, that's, yeah, what I just said. Yeah. So I removed a lot of that stuff out of the actual flow, but yes, and me too, because we were discovering what I'm talking about today. And that is, when you're on the outside, you see something. When you're coming in and you're moving through, you're inundated, bombarded, overwhelmed, preoccupied by every new thing that's coming along. You don't really have the time to say, boy, I remember what it felt like on the outside, because you're busy being on the inside. You're busy coming into your own. What's fascinating is when you're on the outside again, when the moment is over and everyone is hugged and it was incredible, love you, see you soon, and we've moved on. When you're standing on the outside again, you can see everything. From that perspective, even if you're standing exactly where you stood, if it was still possible to stand on the spot you stood before you put your hand on the door to walk into that television studio, to begin that chapter of your life, if that building was still there, if you could stand there now, you would see all of it. You would see what the studio looks like, brand new, from this side, through these eyes. When you walk down the hall, you would say, hall seemed bigger. The echoes were louder. I remember everybody being taller. They were, because you were. I remember how nervous I was the first time when I got to read. I remember the first read through. I remember, and everybody remembers all the things they thought were true, because they were true as they were in that learning curve. Every single day was a fresh reality for them. What's amazing is when you're back on the outside. I have this conversation with my great friend, Greg Romsky, all the time. I tease him about it all the time. He's basically my stage tech coordinator when I come and do live shows now. And he's wonderful. When he came up with David Johnson and Thomas Hendricks and Joe Rita and Andy Conrad, all those people from the stage, Jared Frank, Scott Barber, the Orange Years film crew, all these people who traveled from out of town to come and be part of the Fame book launch, spend the weekend, get to actually meet some of the stars, be part of my world. We were standing outside Paul Couvret's photography studio in Ottawa. Paul Couvret is an extraordinary photographer who has photographed all the rich, all the famous, all the influential more than once. And he's an icon. So we're standing on the outside of this little studio, and I have my hand on the door, and I turned to Greg and I said, I'm going to tell you something, and we will talk about it later. The minute you walk through that door, your life will forever be changed, and you will never be the same. And this is the teasing part. He's got this dry sense of humor. He says, well, that's right, Abby, I'll be on the inside. And I said, that's right, Greg. I'll remind you of those words. So we opened the door and we swanned on through. And the crew, all my people who came up from the States to help me put everything together, and my Ottawa people who helped me put everything together, and Paul Couvret, who kept saying, I had no idea you were going to move everything. And then all the people the next day, all the people who came to the book launch, and all the wonderful experiences we had, and the laughs we shared, and the surprises we had when Thomas Hendricks rescued my feather boa from certain death by fire. all these amazing moments that we shared. It seemed like this kaleidoscope of just joy and fun. And meanwhile, Scott Barber's shooting for the documentary. I mean, it's just this layered event. So it started by setting everything up. Then we all changed our clothes in order to look fabulous. And then we had the day, and then we changed out of our fabulous clothes back into our grunt clothes, and we put everything, took it apart and put it all away. And then we all said, let's go and have something to eat. We're exhausted, and we did. And we were getting ready to leave the building. And I had my hand on the door, and Greg was coming toward me. And he looked at me, and I looked at him because I had my hand on the doorknob. And he said, so I feel like an idiot. And I smiled and I said, that's okay, honey. How was it? He said, there are no words. And I said, okay, watch this. So I opened the door and I ushered him out, and we went outside, and I said, pause. And I turned and I closed the door, and I said, let's take it 2 steps back. And I said, what do you know now? And he said, everything. And I said, and how do you feel? And he said, no words. All right, then, let's go and get something to eat. And we did. Our perspective is often, oh, I've been at my job for almost 13 years now. A new perspective would be great. Good morning, little Miss Dev. I agree. Sometimes if they let you, if you just move the desk or change something on the wall, it's a start. But I agree with you. A fresh perspective wakes us up and puts us to the test. And while we say, oh my God, there's so much work involved, the test is what we need to feel refreshed and alive and excited about what we do all over again. So anyway, just to wrap up this conversation about Greg and I, everybody got together for dinner, and we all sat there. We laughed and talked, and oh my God, remember this? And I can still smell burnt feather, boa feathers. And I mean, just we just had the most amazing dinner. Now, we had an amazing dinner the night before because everyone was excited. Most of them hadn't seen me since the show. And we surprised everyone because I got Christine to come and just drop in on the dinner. And you see all these guys, you know, they're either their drink in their hand or the food on the way, and they all turned into Lot's wife. They were all just turned to stone for a second. And she said, hey guys, is there room for me? And they all frantically moved around, and she sat down. She said, what's going on? And that remarkable shift triggered something amazing within the event. And I forget who it was. It might have been Greg, or not Thomas, because Thomas had already been through all this process. It was one of the guys who said, you know, it's really strange. A few minutes ago, I was carrying something over for Jim to do this or that or the other thing. And Christine turned around and said, oh, here, let me help you with that. And I said, oh, hey, thanks, Chris. And then I realized we were already friends. We'd become friends having supper the night before. It wasn't, oh, hey, gosh, it's really great to meet you, Christine. I'm a really big fan. It wasn't that. We didn't even really have an opportunity for that the night before because we were all having dinner. We were talking, and Christine said, is that any good? Should I have that? And it was just so relaxed and so informal. And, you know, they'd been talking to me for a couple of hours, and Carol was there. And so everybody was, you know, easygoing and laid back, and everything was fine. And Christine, when she's kind of, you know, schmoozed her way in, and everything felt inevitable. The next day, they were starting to see, especially after helping Jim Clark put the lockers together, because what a nuisance they are. And by the end of that, they're still in awe of the lockers. They're still excited by the fact that, you know, behind 2 of the doors, there's all the autographs from the, you know, all the kids. But they felt a certain ownership of the locker experience because they had become show crew. They were still show fans. I mean, every member of the crew loved the show, which is pretty great. Because can you imagine if they'd hated it? So these people became part of the process. And because so many things were going on, we had perfume samples, and we had skincare samples, and we had jewelry samples, and we had there's something else that we were selling, and we had this wonderful people who brought different wines to sample from different vineyards in the Ottawa area, and we had cupcake and cookies and bakery, yummy, good, delicious, incredibly straight to your hips people who brought their samples. And so we talked about books, and we talked about wine, and Paul had all of his incredible photos and whatnot in the front part of his studio, and people were overwhelmed by the individuals he met and mingled with and taken photographs of. And it was so much a layered experience. They met so many unexpected, incredible people, and exchanged. I'll reach out to you on Facebook or Instagram, or call me, and the friendships continue today. Scott Barber from Texas flies up to get footage of this event for part of the Orange Years. We had not met before that. I knew he was a fan, but we hadn't met. And then, all of a sudden, he's messaging me back and forth on how it's going, getting funding and who's interested and whatnot. And then a notice that, by the way, Abby, we made it to Rolling Stone, and just so much that would never have happened if I hadn't decided to do the book launch that way. If I hadn't said the way I used to, what's the worst that can happen? I said, I didn't say what's the worst. I said, this is the most perfect place to do it. I can't wait. And I can't wait to invite all the kinds of people who would love to see the lockers, meet the kids, meet the crew, go to Paul's studio, try a cupcake. I've always wanted to go to such and such a vineyard. I can sample the wines. Oh, I love his jewelry. I love her perfume. They had all those reasons to come, and me. So I wasn't the only draw. I wasn't the star attraction. It was all of that. And then the book, which pulls apart and allows us to look inside the many, many layers of what it means to be known for something while we are something else. Because that's what fame is. Fame is the illusion, the top surface. Fame is the doctor, the lawyer. Fame is the first responder, the sniper. Reality is John, who has seasonal allergies and doesn't know why, and can't stand it every March and August. Okay, not the same. And yet, yes, they are. So this is fame. So when everybody gets to go inside fame, when they enter from the novice end of fame and they get to be inside fame, and they get to see all the ways that people look at you and talk to you and think about you. And as you are learning and growing and changing and developing new skills and becoming a different, more recognizable part of you, not only does their view of you change, but your perspective changes. And you see the world in a whole new way. Definitely going to have to get your fame book on Amazon. Oh, Tony, thank you. Thank you very much. It's a little pricier than a lot of these books, but there's 250 color photographs and great insights from the kids, from all of the people that I interviewed. So I know you won't be disappointed. And when you do get it and you do read it, I want to hear what you think. Promise me you'll do that. Okay? So this business of perspective, the reason I wanted to talk about it, and when I talked about it on Facebook, I was talking about my 5-month journey as a kind of a combination chauffeur and cheerleader for my friend who had a health scare and really needed my support. And as with that story and this story and all the stories, what's really going on is that we often find reasons to drag our heels, to overthink, to resist and slow the timing when we're faced with the challenge of change. We come up with all kinds of reasons. What if I don't like it? What if it's stupid? What if I lose everything I ever cared about because I come somebody else and they don't like me? What if it doesn't turn out to be the way I thought it would? All kinds of reasons not to give it a shot. And in all of those reasons, what's very interesting is that it's our fear of the pain we're going to go through, but it's not really about us. All of our what ifs, all of our kvetching, all of our no, I don't know, all of that is not based on who we are. It's based on who we think other people, who we think other situations, circumstances, events will be altered, will hurt us, will cost us something if we change, if we take on something new. We stay stuck in this perspective of the small, frightened creature looking up at something scary because we can't really see it in focus. And we take all this time to stay here doing that we could just better spend opening the door, walking through. Because you know what? When you open the door, if you look around and you really don't like it, here's the thing: you can go back, open the door, walk out. Check, please. We're free to come and go. The only reason we come and then stay is because the process is fascinating. The process catches us up and carries us away. We forget all of our doubts and insecurities and indecisions because we're too busy. We're tap dancing. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. And then all of a sudden it's over. Boop. And we're on the outside again. Not because we got kicked to the curb, but because the moment ended. And we're on the outside of that moment looking back. And we can see all the different facets of us, all the different things we did and became. We can look, we can see it, we can talk about it. Remember when I did this? Yeah, remember when you do that? We have a whole new level of who we are. And here's why that matters. Here's why that matters. We give ourselves a wake-up call. We allow ourselves to say, I like that actually. I mean, it was crazy, and I need to wear more sensible shoes. Not speaking for me, of course. And I'm never going to order food in that restaurant again. But all that aside, I love what I learned. I loved who I was. I've discovered something more about myself. I've discovered something more about the world. And when we go there, when we go to that taller, I'm walking here place, fear goes away. Why? Because it turned out to be amazing. If something is unfamiliar, there's a chance it could be dangerous. Absolutely. If we just stick our nose inside, we can kind of guess, listen to our gut, pay attention to our intuition, take a few steps. If it's not dangerous, then it's something else. It's something we can add to our repertoire. We can add to our portfolio of skills. The most extraordinary thing about the subconscious brain that resists change all the time is that when change is presented to it in the right way, it accepts change. It leans in. It takes it on. And it's fabulous. The subconscious brain takes care of 90% of the functions of us. 90%. This brain that's very clever and this brain that is just amazing, these two together take care of 10%. They're creative, they're fabulous, they're brilliant, they're game-changing, life-changing. But the 90% is 90% because every time there's an opportunity to transform an intention into a habit, as long as we do it the right way, as long as we keep it simple, as long as the steps we follow are repeatable, subconscious brain eats that up. And that brain is where all of our best moments are stored. That is where our best self is in any given situation. And we have a kabillion best selves. And when we're faced with something new and we don't know what to do, we don't have to be, oh no, what do I do? We don't have to do that, because we already have these kabillion other versions of us that take a look at it and say, that looks interesting. Give me a minute while I change my shoes. No fear. Careful, hesitant, all right, watching carefully, watching slowly, closely, taking the steps, getting into the curve, taking the steps, going a little faster, All of a sudden, it's not a step, it's a leap. We're defying gravity. We're taking bigger strides. We get to the other side and we go, safe. I'm safe. We did it. I'm walking here. How you doing? The subconscious loves that. Loves it, eats it up. And the rest of us, the rest of the brain, gets to call it words and gets to connect it to other things and gets to talk about it and gets to take pictures of it and show it. Subconscious brain says, you just let me know when you need to be that again. I got it right here. So pivot free in motion, this process, this concept that has leapt upon me like Bugs Bunny kissing me on the nose with a glad cry. Pivot free is our magic, is our ability. It's fueled by our subconscious. It's our innate, intuitive, instant ability to look at a situation and say, got it covered, and haul out exactly the right version of you, exactly the right perspective, exactly the right memories to ace it every time. Every time. The reason we don't do it, the reason we don't use it, the reason people who motivate others miss it by that much is a very common thing that we all do. And it's also part of perspective. When you're standing at the beginning of a path, everything looks like that. When you take 3 steps down the path, everything is slightly closer, and other stuff that you didn't know before is now behind you. Take a few more steps. New stuff is even closer. You know even more. The stuff you didn't know is bigger and it's behind you. As we do that, and that's what we do every day all the time, it's very easy to forget that there are people still who have just arrived at the start of the path. And when they ask you a question, the answer we give them is too much information for them to understand. We use shortcuts. Instead of saying, if someone says, how do I conquer my fear? Instead of telling them how to conquer fear, where the tools live, why they work, we say, you just can't let it control you. That doesn't tell this person anything of value. Just say no. Isn't of any value if people don't have all the tools and all the information. It's useless. And it's not said in a condescending manner, usually. It's said by someone who has forgotten how many steps along the path they have come. They're saying the thing they know now. They're saying it to the wrong person. The thing they knew then, way back then, is the thing that person needs to hear. And because I have observed the way I learn things and observed the way I do things, and I use my observations to share stories with people and coach people, I know what it's like. I remember what it's like to be at the beginning. As a military kid, I was at the beginning all over again every year and a half, forever. It's not a thing you forget easily. I know what it's like to be the new kid. I know what it's like to not know where my house is. I know what it's like to not know where the locker is at school and what you're supposed to wear and what you're not supposed to order at the cafeteria. I know that really well. So can I help people tap into the part of them they need to be to get where they truly want to go? Absolutely. Absolutely. And does it help at all that I was known around the world as a kind of forgiving and non-judgmental mom? Absolutely it does. Am I leveraging that for best outcome? You betcha. You betcha. So the reason for today's video was to make sure that you can see the possibilities when you open the door, that you can believe because of the others who have been there, that it's going to change everything. And you will never be the same in the very possible way. If you can take that message away, and then, oh, by the way, maybe tell some of your friends they should subscribe too, then we have a much happier, smarter, joyous crowd, a most brilliant tribe, a little better than yesterday. And I think that's awesome. Don't you? So I have to fly. I have to go and see if I can still find my car because everything's white out there. I'm so glad you chose to spend the morning with me. I'm so glad you came. It means everything when you do, because it's all about you, really. So in between now and Thursday, because of course I'll be back, two things. Give yourself permission to feel the joy and the possibilities of what if. Not what if it doesn't work, but what if it does. Give yourself that. What if it does? Just write that down. Give yourself permission to say, what if it works? Do that. Let me know how it felt. Let me know what happened after that. Okay? And after that, you know the drill. Be good to you. You deserve it. And remember to hug your loved ones. Oh my gosh, do they need a hug? Right? We all need a hug. And I will see you in a couple of days. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.